The air in Mingles froze. It wasn't a gradual cooling. It was an instant, violent drop in temperature that pricked the back of Adana's neck like a needle. She didn't need to turn around to know who had just walked through the double glass doors. She felt him. The heavy, suffocating gravity of Beek Duhayan always arrived 5 seconds before the man himself. Adana gripped the stem of her wine glass, her knuckles turning the color of ash. "Don't turn around," she begged herself. "Just keep smiling at Ti-yoon. Just pretend you don't work for the devil." But the restaurant had gone quiet. The clinking of silverware stopped. Conversations died in throats. Even the waiters seemed to shrink against the walls. Heavy footsteps echoed on the polished floor, slow, deliberate, predatory. They were coming straight for table 4. Ti-yoon, sweet, oblivious Ti-yoon, looked over Adana's shoulder, his eyes widening. "Whoa," he whispered. "That guy looks like he owns the place. Or like he's about to kill someone." "Don't look at him," Adana hissed, her voice trembling. "Why, do you know?" A shadow fell over their table, blocking out the warm, ambient light. The scent of expensive leather, tobacco, and cold rain filled Adana's nose. "Adana," a deep voice rumbled. It wasn't a greeting. It was a claim. She slowly lifted her head. Beek Duhayan loomed over them, his hands buried in the pockets of a black suit that cost more than her father's house. His dark hair was swept back, severe and sharp, but his eyes were the worst part. They were pitch black, devoid of light, and they were fixed on Ti-yoon's hand, which was resting innocently on the tablecloth near Adana's. Duhayan looked at that hand like it was a roach he needed to crush. "Mr. Beek," Adana managed to choke out. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Evidently," Duhayan said. His gaze snapped to hers, burning with a mix of fury and something darker, hungrier. "Since you called in sick this afternoon, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments and rate this video 110. And if you haven't subscribed to Timeless K-Love yet, you might miss the ending of this story, so hit that button now." "I didn't call in sick," Adana said, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She stood up, her legs feeling like jelly. She had to get between them. She had to stop whatever violence was brewing behind Duhayan's calm mask. "I left at 5. My shift ended. I'm allowed to eat dinner, aren't I?" Duhayan ignored her logic. He stepped closer, invading her personal space, sucking the oxygen out of the air. He was so close she could see the tiny, exhausted red veins in the corners of his eyes. "Who is he?" Duhayan asked, softly, deadly. Ti-yoon stood up then, wiping his mouth with a napkin. He smiled, a nervous, shaky thing. "I'm Choi Ti-yoon. I'm a graphic designer. Adana and I met through." Duhayan didn't even look at him. He kept his eyes locked on Adana. "I asked you, Adana, who is this man and why is he touching you?" "He wasn't touching me." Adana snapped, the embarrassment finally giving way to a spark of anger. "We are having dinner. It's a date, Duhayan. A normal human date, something you wouldn't understand." The word date hit Duhayan like a physical slap. His jaw clenched tight enough to snap a tooth. The silence that stretched between them was thick, heavy with unsaid threats. "A date," Duhayan repeated. The word tasted like poison in his mouth. He finally turned his head to look at Ti-yoon. He looked the man up and down, dissecting him, his cheap watch, his scuffed shoes, his nervous posture. Duhayan smirked. It was a cruel, arrogant tilt of his lips. "You have low standards, Adana. I thought I taught you better." "Hey," Ti-yoon said, his face flushing red. "That's uncalled for." Duhayan took one step toward Ti-yoon, just one. But the menace radiating off him was so intense that Ti-yoon stumbled back, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Leave," Duhayan said. "Excuse me." "Get out," Duhayan said, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. "Before I have my security drag you out by your hair, you are ruining my appetite." "You can't do that," Adana cried out, grabbing Duhayan's arm. It was a mistake. His muscles were rock hard beneath the suit jacket. He looked down at her hand on his arm, and for a split second the anger in his eyes fractured into something desperate. "Ti-yoon, go," Adana said, tears stinging her eyes. She couldn't let innocent Ti-yoon get hurt because her boss was a psychopath. "Please, just go, I'll call you." "You won't call him," Duhayan muttered. Ti-yoon looked from the terrifying man to Adana's pleading face. He was a graphic designer, not a fighter. He threw a $50 bill on the table and practically ran toward the exit. Adana watched him go, humiliation burning her cheeks. She turned back to Duhayan, shaking with rage. "What the hell is wrong with you? You have no right." "Sit down," Duhayan ordered, pulling out the chair opposite her. He sat in Ti-yoon's spot, looking like a king on a stolen throne. "Finish your wine. We need to discuss your schedule for next week." "My schedule?" Adana stared at him, incredulous. "You just chased away the first decent guy I've been out with in 2 years, and you want to talk about my schedule." "He wasn't decent. He was weak." Duhayan signaled the waiter with a snap of his fingers. Bring a fresh bottle, the most expensive red you have, and take this. He gestured vaguely at Tiyun's half-eaten pasta. Garbage away. Adana grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. She turned on her heel and marched toward the door. She expected him to follow. She expected him to grab her wrist and drag her back. Her skin prickled, waiting for his touch. But he didn't move. He just sat there watching her walk away, his dark eyes burning a hole between her shoulder blades. She felt his gaze all the way to the street, heavy and possessive. She hailed a taxi, her hands trembling so badly she dropped her phone twice. Safe, she told herself as the taxi sped away. I'm safe. But as she looked out the window at the rainy Seoul streets, she knew it was a lie. She had crossed a line tonight. She had shown Baek Do-hyun that she had a life outside of him, and he had hated it. The weekend was a tortured chamber of silence. Adana spent Saturday staring at her phone, waiting for the inevitable angry text, the firing email, or the summons to his penthouse. Nothing came. The screen remained black. She cleaned her apartment 3 times. She scrubbed the floors until her knees bruised. She drank too much cheap wine and replayed the scene in the restaurant over and over. The way his eyes had looked when he saw Tiyun near her, it wasn't just anger. It was panic. Why? She thought, lying on her couch at 2:00 a.m. on Sunday. He treats me like a machine. I'm just the woman who schedules his hits and hides his money. Why does he care who I have pasta with? But she knew. Deep down, in the part of her brain she refused to listen to, she knew. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of an executioner's axe. Adana dressed in her armor, a sharp navy pencil skirt, a white silk blouse buttoned to the top, and 4-inch heels that clicked like gunshots on the pavement. She entered the headquarters of Baek Enterprises at 7:45 a.m. The security guards nodded at her, fear in their eyes. Everyone feared the boss's shadow. She made the coffee. Black, bitter, scalding hot, just the way his damaged soul liked it. At 8:00 a.m. sharp, she knocked on the heavy oak door of his office. Enter. The voice was flat, dead. Adana pushed the door open. The office was freezing. The air conditioning was cranked down to the lowest setting, matching the atmosphere. Do-hyun was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the gray skyline of Seoul. He didn't turn around. Your coffee, sir, Adana said, placing the cup on the coaster on his pristine glass desk. Check the Hong Kong accounts, Do-hyun said to the window, and get me the file on the Jung construction deal. He was pretending it hadn't happened. He was going to play the cold boss card. Adana didn't move. She stood by the desk, her hands clasped in front of her. I'm sorry about Friday, she lied. She wasn't sorry, she was furious, but she needed this job. Her family back home needed the money she sent every month. Do-hyun's shoulders stiffened. Slowly, he turned around. He looked terrible. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his jaw was covered in a shadow of stubble, something he never allowed. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. You're sorry, he repeated. He walked toward her, moving around the desk. What exactly are you sorry for, Adana? For embarrassing me, or for letting a stranger put his hands on you? He didn't touch me, Adana snapped, the professional mask slipping. And even if he did, it is none of your damn business. I am your executive assistant, Do-hyun. I am not your wife. I am not your property. Do-hyun stopped 2 feet in front of her. The air crackled with electricity. You handle my money. You know my schedule. You know where the bodies are buried, metaphorically and literally, he hissed. You are a liability. Any man who gets close to you is a security risk. I have to vet them. I have to know them. Bull, Adana said. Do-hyun blinked, surprised by her language. It wasn't about security, Adana pushed, stepping closer, fueled by 2 days of anxiety. You checked his background before you even walked into that restaurant, didn't you? You knew he was a nobody. You knew he wasn't a threat to the company. He was a threat, Do-hyun growled, his voice dropping an octave. To what? To my focus. Do-hyun slammed his hand down on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Adana jumped, but she stood her ground. He breathed heavily, his chest heaving. I pay you to be available, to be focused. When you are out, mingling. With these idiots, you are distracted. I work 18 hours a day for you, Adana shouted back. I have given you 2 years of my life. I have no friends. I have no hobbies. I have a cat I barely see. I went on 1 date, Do-hyun, 1 date, and you acted like I betrayed you. You did, he whispered. The room went silent. The words hung there, heavy and confusing. Adana stared at him. How is me having dinner betrayal? Do-hyun looked away, jaw clenching. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect style. He looked like a man fighting a war inside his own head. You wouldn't understand, he muttered. Go back to your desk, get the Hong Kong files. No, Adana said. She was trembling, but she crossed her arms. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not playing this game where you own me from 9 to 5 and then stalk me from 5 to 9. If you want to fire me, fire me. But I'm not going to apologize for trying to have a life. Du-hyun looked back at her. His eyes swept over her face, lingering on her lips, then her eyes. He looked pained. "I can't fire you," he said, his voice rough. "You know I can't. Because I'm good at my job. Because," he stepped into her space, so close his suit jacket brushed her arm. "Because if you leave, the silence in this office will drive me insane." Adana's breath hitched. It was the closest thing to a compliment he had ever given her, and it sounded like a curse. "Then stop acting like a jealous boyfriend," she whispered, looking up at him. "Because you're not." Du-hyun's eyes flashed. For a second, she thought he was going to kiss her, or hit the wall. The violence and the desire were mixed so tightly in him she couldn't tell them apart. "Get out," he rasped. "Get out before I do something that makes me break my own rules." Adana fled. She grabbed her notebook and walked out, closing the door behind her. She slumped against the wall in the hallway, pressing a hand to her racing heart. He's crazy, she thought. He is toxic, dangerous, and completely unstable. But as she walked to her desk, her skin was burning where his jacket had brushed her. And God help her, she wasn't thinking about Taeyoon. She was thinking about the way Du-hyun had looked at her mouth. By Wednesday, the office was a war zone. Du-hyun wasn't speaking to her. He was emailing her instructions from 10 feet away. "Coffee. Print this. Call the lawyer." Adana complied maliciously. She made the coffee slightly colder than he liked. She printed documents on the wrong paper weight. She was petty and it felt good. But at 2:00 p.m., the elevator doors slid open, and a woman walked in who made Adana's stomach drop to her shoes. She was Korean, petite, and devastatingly beautiful. She wore a white suit that looked like it had been tailored by angels. Her hair was in a sleek bob, and her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Excuse me," the woman said, stopping at Adana's desk. Her English was perfect. "Is Baek Du-hyun in? I'm Ruth. Do you have an appointment?" Adana asked, putting on her professional mask. "I don't need one," Ruth smiled. She leaned over the desk. "I'm his fiancée, well, almost." The world tilted on its axis. Adana felt the blood drain from her face. "His what?" "Our fathers are finalizing the merger," Ruth said, checking her nails. "Arranged, of course, but Du-hyun and I go way back." "Is he in?" Before Adana could answer, the office door opened. Du-hyun stood there. He looked at Ruth, then at Adana. His face was unreadable. "Ruth," he said. He didn't sound happy. He didn't sound angry. He sounded resigned. "I told you not to come here." "I missed you, Opa," Ruth cooed, walking past Adana like she was furniture. She walked right up to Du-hyun and placed a hand on his chest. Adana watched, feeling a cold, sick knot tighten in her stomach. Du-hyun didn't push her away. He stood there, letting this woman touch him while looking directly at Adana over Ruth's shoulder. His eyes were cold again, empty. "Come in," Du-hyun said to Ruth. He stepped back and let her into his office. The door clicked shut. Adana sat alone in the quiet outer office. She stared at the closed door. She heard Ruth's muffled laughter through the wood. "Fiancé." The word echoed in her head. Of course. Of course he had someone. Men like Baek Du-hyun always married for power, for money, for alliances. Adana was just the help. She was the one who knew his coffee order, not the one who would wear his ring. She felt like a fool, a stupid, jealous fool. She looked at her computer screen, the words blurring. She couldn't stay here, not today, not while that woman was in there laughing with him. Adana stood up. She grabbed her purse. She grabbed her coat. She walked to the elevator. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't ask for permission. She just left. She was halfway down the block when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. She finally picked it up, answering angrily. "What? Where are you going?" Du-hyun's voice. Low, urgent. "I'm sick," Adana lied, her voice breaking. "I'm going home." "Adana, wait, turn around." "No, go back to your fiancé, Mr. Baek." "She's not." "Adana, stop walking. You are not safe out there alone right now." "I'm safer out here than I am with you," Adana shouted, not caring that people on the sidewalk were staring. "Leave me alone." She hung up and turned off her phone. She needed a drink. She needed to forget Baek Du-hyun existed. She turned the corner, heading toward a bar she knew. She was so focused on her anger, on the tears burning her eyes, that she didn't notice the black van idling by the curb. She didn't notice the two men in gray hoodies stepping out, matching her pace. Adana heard the footsteps too late. "Excuse me, miss," a voice said behind her. She turned, ready to snap at a stranger. A cloth smashed over her nose and mouth. It smelled like chemicals and rot. Adana tried to scream, but the sound was choked off. Strong arms grabbed her waist, dragging her backward. Her heels scraped uselessly against the concrete. The world started to spin. Gray spots danced in her vision. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was her phone lying on the pavement, vibrating. Baek Du-hyun calling. The phone didn't just disconnect, it died. Baek Du-hyun stood in the middle of the sidewalk, the device pressed to his ear, listening to the static. For a split second, the world went silent. The traffic noise, the wind, the distant chatter of pedestrians, it all vanished. Then a roar ripped through his chest. He turned back to the building, his face a mask of absolute, terrifying fury. He didn't walk, he stormed. The security guards in the lobby scrambled out of his way as he barreled through the glass doors. He slammed his hand on the elevator button, smashing the plastic casing. When the doors opened on his floor, Ruth was still sitting on his sofa, sipping tea, looking bored. She looked up, a coy smile forming on her lips. "Did you fire her, Opa? It's really for the bee." "Get out," Du-Hyan said. His voice was so low, so vibrating with violence that the teacup rattled in its saucer. Ruth blinked. "Excuse me. Get out." Du-Hyan marched to his desk, grabbing his other phone, the encrypted one. He didn't look at her. "If you are not out of this building in 60 seconds, I will have you thrown out the window." Ruth stood up, her face pale. She had known Du-Hyan for years, known his reputation, but she had never seen him like this. He looked like a demon unchained. She grabbed her purse and ran, her heels clicking frantically as she fled the coming storm. Du-Hyan dialed a single number. "Track her," he commanded the moment the line opened. Adana's phone went offline on 4th Street, near the intersection of Mapo. "I want satellite, I want CCTV, I want traffic cams. Now." "Sir," his head of security, Chief Min, answered. "The tracker in her phone is dead, but the emergency GPS in her ID badge is active. It's moving, east, fast." "Get the car," Du-Hyan said, pulling a Glock 19 from the hidden safe behind his monitor. He checked the chamber, loaded, and shoved it into his waistband. "And tell the boys to bring the rifles." "We are not negotiating." Adana woke up to the taste of copper and dust. Her head was throbbing, a rhythmic pounding that matched her heartbeat. She tried to move her hands, but they were wrenched behind her back, tied tight with plastic zip ties that bit into her skin. She groaned, blinking her eyes open. The light was dim, yellow, and flickering. She was in a warehouse, damp, smelling of oil and rotting fish. It was cold. "She's awake!" Adana jerked her head up. 3 men stood in front of her. 2 were the ones from the street, wearing gray hoodies. The 3rd man was sitting on a crate, smoking a cigarette. He was older, with a jagged scar running down his cheek. "Welcome back, Sleeping Beauty," the scarred man said in Korean. Adana's Korean was good, she'd learned it for the job, but panic made her brain slow. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We want leverage," the man said, standing up and crushing the cigarette under his boot. "Your boss, Baek Du-Hyan, took something of ours, a shipment. Very expensive." "I'm just his assistant," Adana said, her voice trembling but loud. "I don't know about shipments, he doesn't tell me anything, you took the wrong person." The man laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. He walked over to her, grabbing her chin in a rough grip. He forced her to look at him. "You think we don't watch him?" he sneered. "Baek Du-Hyan is a machine. He has no family he cares about. He has no friends. But for the last 2 years, wherever he goes, you are there. He looks at you when he thinks no one is seeing. We took you because you are the only thing in his life that is warm." Adana felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "He looks at you when he thinks no one is seeing." "He won't come for me," Adana whispered. "He has a fiancé, he's merging companies, I'm nobody. We'll see." The man pulled out a phone. "Let's give him a call." He dialed and put it on speaker. It rang once. "Speak," Du-Hyan's voice filled the warehouse. It wasn't the calm, cold voice she knew, it was ragged. "Mr. Baek," the scarred man smiled. "We have your girl, pretty thing, dark skin, talks too much. If you touch her," Du-Hyan said, his voice strangely calm now, "I will peel the skin from your bones." Adana let out a sob at the sound of his voice. "Du-Hyan, Adana," Du-Hyan's voice cracked. "Adana, are you hurt?" "I'm okay, the scarred man pulled the phone away. Not so fast. We want the shipment back, the Busan container. And $5 million cash. You have 1 hour to." "I'm outside," Du-Hyan said. The scarred man froze. "What?" "I said." Du-Hyan's voice was suddenly accompanied by the screech of tires and the crashing of metal. "I'm outside." A massive boom shook the building. The metal rolling door at the far end of the warehouse buckled inward as a black armored SUV smashed through it, sending debris flying. The 2 men in hoodies scrambled for their guns. "Kill her!" the scarred man screamed, pulling a knife. Adana threw herself sideways, tipping the chair over. She hit the concrete hard, her shoulder taking the brunt of the impact, but it moved her out of the line of fire. Gunshots erupted. Adana squeezed her eyes shut, curling into a ball as best she could while tied to a chair. The noise was deafening. Pop, 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 screams, the sound of metal hitting flesh. Then silence, heavy footsteps approached, fast, panic-stricken. "Adana!" She opened her eyes. Du-Hyan was there. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket. His white shirt was splattered with red, blood that wasn't his. He held the gun in one hand, but he holstered it immediately when he saw her. He dropped to his knees, his hands hovering over her for a second, shaking, before he pulled a knife from his belt and slashed the zip ties on her wrists. "Adana," he breathed, pulling her up. Look at me, look at me." She scrambled into his arms, burying her face in his blood-spattered shirt. She was crying now hysterical, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. You actually came. I told you," he whispered fiercely, crushing her against him. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling deeply, checking that she was real. "I told you you're mine, no one touches what is mine." He pulled back, his hands framing her face. His eyes were wild, dilated, terrifyingly intense. He scanned her face for bruises. "Did they hurt you? Tell me. If they touched you, I'll kill them again. I'll wake them up and kill them again." "I'm fine," Adana choked out. "Just my wrists." "My shoulder." Du-Hyan looked at the red marks on her wrists and his face twisted in agony. He kissed the raw skin, his lips trembling against her pulse. It was such a tender, intimate gesture in the middle of a slaughterhouse that Adana felt dizzy. "Let's go," he said, standing up and pulling her with him. He kept one arm wrapped tightly around her waist, shielding her body with his own. "Don't look at the floor. Keep your eyes on me." Adana tried, but she saw the bodies. The scarred man was lying by the crates, motionless. The violence Du-Hyan had unleashed in 30 seconds was absolute. He led her to the SUV. His security team was securing the perimeter, but Du-Hyan waved them off. He opened the passenger door for her, buckled her in himself, his hands lingering on the seatbelt. "Take us home," he ordered the driver. "Not the office, my house." The penthouse was silent, high above the city, insulated from the grime and the violence below. Du-Hyan led Adana into the massive master bathroom. He sat her down on the closed toilet lid and knelt in front of her with a first aid kit. He cleaned the scrape on her cheek with stinging antiseptic, his movements surprisingly gentle for a man who had just killed 3 people. Adana watched him. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her cold and numb. "Ruth," she said softly. Du-Hyan's hand paused. He looked up. "What?" "The woman in your office, your fiancé." Du-Hyan let out a harsh, bitter laugh. He tossed the cotton swab into the bin. "She is not my fiancé. That is a lie our fathers tell themselves to sleep at night. There is no merger. There is no marriage." "She seemed pretty sure," Adana whispered. "Adana." Du-Hyan put his hands on her knees, gripping them tight. "Do you think I would destroy a warehouse for Ruth? Do you think I would lose my mind if Ruth didn't answer her phone?" Adana looked into his eyes. The darkness was still there, but the walls were down. She saw the fear. The sheer, naked terror of losing her. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why me? I'm just Adana." "Just Adana," Du-Hyan repeated, shaking his head. "You are the only person who looks at me and doesn't see a monster. You are the only person who asks me if I've eaten. You are the only peace I have in this hell of a life." He leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. "I tried to push you away," he confessed, his voice thick. "When I saw you with that boy at the restaurant. I wanted to kill him, not because he was a threat to the business, but because he could give you a life I can't, a safe life, a normal life, sunlight and pasta and stupid movies." "I don't want a normal life," Adana whispered. The realization hit her hard. She had been bored with Tiyun, she had been waiting for the storm. "I want you." Du-Hyan froze. He pulled back inches, searching her eyes. "Don't say that unless you mean it, because I am selfish, Adana. If you say you want me, I will never let you go. I will keep you in this tower. I will burn the world to keep you safe. I will be the jealous, possessive bastard you hate because I cannot breathe without you." "I don't hate you," Adana said. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched the sharp line of his jaw. "I tried to, but I don't." Du-Hyan closed his eyes at her touch, turning his face into her palm. He kissed the center of her hand. "Then stay," he breathed. "Stay with me, be mine. Let me protect you." "Okay," Adana said softly. Du-Hyan opened his eyes. He didn't smile. He wasn't a smiling man, but the tension drained from his shoulders. He stood up, pulling her up with him. "You need a shower," he said, his voice dropping to a lower, huskier register. "You smell like that warehouse." "I don't have any clothes here," Adana pointed out. "You can wear my shirt," Du-Hyan said. "Or nothing, I prefer nothing." Adana felt a blush heat her cheeks, the first bit of warmth she'd felt in hours. "Du-Hyan." "I'm serious," he said, leading her toward the shower, his arm heavy around her waist. "I need to wash the blood off, and I am not letting you out of my sight, not for a second." He turned on the water, steam filling the room. He stripped off his ruined shirt, revealing a torso scarred from old battles and hard with muscle. Adana watched him, her heart pounding a different rhythm now. Fear was gone, replaced by a dangerous, intoxicating heat. He stepped into the shower and held out his hand to her. The water ran down his face, softening the sharp angles. "Come here," he commanded, softly. Adana stepped out of her ruined skirt and blouse. She took his hand. The next morning, Adana woke up in a bed that felt like a cloud. The sheets were gray silk, cool against her skin. She turned over. Du Hyun was asleep next to her. It was the first time she had ever seen him sleeping. He looked younger. The deep furrow between his brows was gone. His arm was thrown heavily over her waist, anchoring her to the mattress even in his sleep. She watched him for a long time, tracing the scars on his chest with her eyes. She knew this wasn't a fairy tale. He was a dangerous man. Yesterday proved that. Being with him meant being a target. It meant jealousy and possessiveness and a life lived in the shadows. When he shifted in his sleep, pulling her closer, mumbling her name into the pillow, she knew she wasn't going anywhere. She was exactly where she belonged, in the eye of the storm. "Stop staring," Du Hyun mumbled, his eyes still closed. Adana jumped. "I thought you were asleep." "I'm never asleep when you're awake," he rasped, opening one eye. It was black and clear and focused entirely on her. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay." "Good." He tightened his grip on her waist. "Because we have a lot to do today." "Like what? Going to the police?" Du Hyun snorted. "The police? No. First, I'm buying you a new car, something bulletproof. Second, we are firing your security team and hiring mine. And third," he rolled over, hovering above her, blocking out the morning sun. "Third," he kissed her neck, making her shiver. "We are going to clarify my relationship status to the public. I want everyone to know." "Know what?" Adana asked breathlessly. "That you belong to me." Going back to the office was supposed to be business as usual. It wasn't. Adana stepped out of the black SUV, the new one with glass thick enough to stop a sniper round, and the atmosphere at Beak Enterprises had shifted. She wasn't walking behind Du Hyun anymore, clutching a clipboard. She was walking beside him. Du Hyun's hand was on the small of her back. It was a light touch, but to anyone watching, it was a heavy brand. Mine. They walked through the lobby. The security guards, usually chatty with Adana, snapped to rigid attention and averted their eyes. The receptionist stopped typing. The silence rippled outward from them like a wave. "Stop touching me," Adana whispered through a frozen smile as they reached the elevator. "People are staring." "Let them stare," Du Hyun said, not moving his hand. "If they are staring at us, they aren't working. I should fire them." "You can't fire everyone, Du Hyun." "Watch me." The elevator doors closed, sealing them in their private steel box. Immediately, Du Hyun pinned her against the wall. It wasn't aggressive, but it was hungry. He kissed her hard, a quick, claiming pressure that messed up her lipstick. "I hate this building," he muttered against her mouth. "I hate that you have to sit at that desk outside my door instead of on my lap inside." "I have work to do," Adana said, pushing him back gently, though her knees felt weak. "And so do you. The board is meeting at 10. "The board can wait. The board controls your stock prices." Du Hyun groaned, fixing his tie in the reflection of the metal doors. "Fine, but tonight you are coming to my place, no arguments." "I need to feed my cat, Du Hyun. I'll have the cat brought to the penthouse. It can live in the guest room or I'll buy it a condo, whatever keeps you with me." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Adana stepped out, straightening her blazer. She expected the usual quiet of the executive floor. Instead, she found Ruth sitting on the edge of Adana's desk, her legs crossed, looking like a queen holding court. Ruth wasn't alone. She was chatting with two of the senior VPs, laughing delicately. When she saw Adana, her smile turned into a sneer. "Finally," Ruth said, checking her diamond watch. "The help arrives. Can you get me a sparkling water, lemon, no ice?" The VPs looked uncomfortable. They knew the rumors. They looked from Ruth to Adana, then to the man stepping out of the elevator behind her. Adana felt the old instinct kick in, the urge to apologize, to serve, to be invisible. But then she felt the heat of Du Hyun at her back. "Get off her desk," Du Hyun said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It cut through the air like a razor blade. Ruth froze. The VPs scrambled back, suddenly finding the carpet patterns very interesting. "Opa," Ruth laughed nervously, sliding off the desk. "Was just, I don't care what you were just." Du Hyun walked past her, not even looking at her face. He stopped at his office door and turned back. He pointed at Adana. "She is not the help. She's the reason this company hasn't burned to the ground. If you ask her for water again, you will be banned from this building. Permanently." Ruth's face went crimson. "You can't be serious. For her, she's just a foreigner, Du Hyun, a temporary distraction." Du Hyun stopped. The air in the room vanished. Turned slowly to face Ruth. His expression was terrifyingly blank. "VP Choi," Du Hyun said to one of the terrified executives. "Cancel the merger talks with Ruth's father." "Sir," VP Choi squeaked. That's $1 billion deal." "Cancel it," Du Hyun said. "Tell them their daughter insulted my partner. Tell them the price of her disrespect is the entire contract." Ruth gasped. "You're insane. My father will destroy you." "Your father is a minnow," Du Hyun said coldly. "I am the shark." "Get out." Ruth stared at him, tears of rage welling in her eyes. Then she looked at Adana with pure, unadulterated hatred. You'll regret this, she hissed at Adana. You think you've won? You have no idea what world you've stepped into, she stormed out. Adana stood there, stunned. The office was dead silent. VP Choi was typing frantically on his phone, probably canceling the deal before Do Hyun killed him too. Do Hyun looked at Adana. Sparkling water, he asked innocently. You just lost $1 billion, Adana whispered. I have plenty of money, Do Hyun shrugged, opening his office door. I don't have plenty of patience. Come inside. I need to kiss you again before the meeting starts. Life with Beek Do Hyun was a series of adjustments. Adana learned to ignore the bodyguard who stood outside the women's restroom when she went in. She learned to accept that her cheap sedan had been replaced by a German tank disguised as a luxury car. She learned that dinner at home meant a professional chef dropping off meals or Do Hyun clumsily trying to grill meat while she laughed at him. It was intense, it was suffocating, but it was also sweet. They were in his kitchen on a Tuesday night 3 weeks after the warehouse incident. Adana was sitting on the counter, eating strawberries. Do Hyun was leaning between her legs, reading a report, but his hand was idly rubbing her thigh. The charity gala is Friday, he said without looking up. Adana stopped chewing. The Shilla Hotel gala. Yes, everyone will be there, the mayor, the crime families pretending to be legitimate businessmen, my competitors. He looked up at her, his dark eyes serious. I want you to come as my date. Adana swallowed. Do Hyun, that's a big statement. That's declaring war on the gossip columns. I don't care about gossip. I do. Adana put the strawberry down. People already stare at me if I walk into the Shilla on your arm. They're going to tear me apart. I'm not Korean, I'm not rich, I'm the secretary. You are the woman I love, Do Hyun said simply. The words still had the power to stop her heart. He said it so easily now, like a fact. The sky is blue, I love you. I don't have anything to wear, she deflected, panic rising. Do Hyun smirked. I took the liberty. He snapped his fingers. His housekeeper, Mrs. Kim, who adored Adana because she finally got Do Hyun to eat vegetables, bustled in carrying 3 garment bags. Pick one, Do Hyun said. Adana unzipped the first one, gold sequins, too flashy. The second one was black velvet, beautiful but safe. She unzipped the third one. It was red, deep, blood-red silk. It was structured and dangerous, with a slit that went up to her thigh and a neckline that plunged. It was a dress meant for a woman who wasn't afraid to be seen. That one, Do Hyun said, his voice dropping. Wear that one, and wear the diamonds I put in the safe. Do Hyun, I can't wear diamonds, I'll look like I'm trying too hard. He grabbed her waist, pulling her off the counter and flush against him. You will look like a queen, and anyone who looks at you with anything less than worship, I will remove their eyes. You have to stop threatening to maim people, Adana sighed, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm working on it, he muttered. But it's a hard habit to break. The night of the gala, Adana felt like she was walking to her execution. Her hair was swept up in an elegant twist. The red dress fit like a second skin. The diamond necklace around her throat was cold and heavy, worth more than her entire college education. Do Hyun looked devastating in a tuxedo. He helped her out of the car in front of the Shilla Hotel. The flashbulbs went off instantly. It was blinding. A wall of white light and shouting voices. Mr. Beek, who is she? Is the merger off? Look here, Adana flinched. Do Hyun's arm tightened around her waist like an iron band. Eyes on me, he whispered in her ear. Ignore them, they are ants. He marched her up the red carpet. He didn't stop for interviews. He didn't smile for photos. He looked at the cameras with a look of pure disdain, shielding Adana with his body. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of old money and power. The air smelled of expensive perfume and hypocrisy. As soon as they entered, heads turned. The whispers started. A ripple of conversation followed them as they moved toward the bar. Breathe, Do Hyun murmured, handing her a glass of champagne. You're crushing the glass. Everyone is looking, Adana hissed. Let them look, they've never seen anything real before. Do Hyun was pulled away briefly by a senator who needed to discuss sanitation contracts, which Adana knew meant money laundering. He left her near a pillar, promising to be back in 2 minutes. Stay here, he ordered. Don't talk to anyone, especially men. Go, she rolled her eyes. He walked away and Adana took a long sip of champagne. She scanned the room, feeling exposed. Well, Cinderella made it to the ball. Adana stiffened. She turned to find Ruth standing there. She wasn't alone this time. She was with a group of women, socialites, the daughters of chaebols. They were all looking at Adana like she was a stain on the carpet. That dress is bold, Ruth said, swirling her wine. Red is usually reserved for, well, women of a certain profession, but maybe that fits. The women giggled. Adana felt the heat rise in her face. Hello, Ruth, enjoying the open bar. I'm enjoying the show, Ruth stepped closer. Do you really think this lasts? He's playing a game, honey. He's bored. He's acting out against his father. Once he's tired of his little rebellion, he'll send you back to whatever village you came from. I'm from Chicago, Adana said flatly. Same thing. Ruth leaned in, her voice dripping with poison. You don't belong here. You don't speak the language of this world. You don't know the rules. You're going to get hurt, Adana. And when he breaks you, he won't even remember your name. Adana's grip on her glass tightened. She wanted to throw the drink in Ruth's face, but that's what Ruth wanted. She wanted a scene. She wanted the crazy foreigner to cause a scandal. Adana took a breath. She channeled Du Hyun. Cold, detached. You're right, Adana said calmly. I don't know the rules, which means I don't have to follow them. She took a step forward, towering over the petite Ruth in her heels. Du Hyun didn't bring me here to rebel, Adana said, her voice steady. He brought me here because he trusts me. He canceled a 1 billion merger because I asked for water. What has any man ever done for you, Ruth, besides buy you with his father's money? Ruth's mouth fell open. The other women went silent. There's a problem here. The voice was low, vibrating with threat. Du Hyun was back. He slid his arm around Adana's waist, pulling her back against his chest. He looked at Ruth with bored indifference. We were just leaving, Ruth stammered, pale. She grabbed her friends and scurried away. Du Hyun looked down at Adana. He checked her face. Did she upset you? Do I need to buy her father's company and dismantle it? Adana looked at Ruth's retreating back, then up at the monster who loved her. She smiled. A real, genuine smile. No, she said. I handled it. Du Hyun's eyes darkened. He looked at her mouth, then dragged his gaze down the red dress. You handled it, he repeated, sounding impressed. Good, now let's dance. I want to hold you while everyone watches and hates us. He led her to the dance floor. The orchestra was playing a waltz. Du Hyun pulled her close, his hands splayed wide on her back. They moved together perfectly. You know, Du Hyun said as he spun her, I was thinking. About. I hate this apartment I live in. It's too cold, too much glass. It's a penthouse, Du Hyun. It's supposed to be glass. I want a house, he said, with a garden, high walls, obviously, but a garden, maybe a swing set eventually. Adana missed a step. She looked up at him, shocked. A swing set. Hypothetically, Du Hyun said, looking over her head, his ears turning slightly pink. For the future, if you stay. Adana's heart swelled so much it hurt. This man who dealt in death and money was dreaming of a garden. I'm staying, she whispered. He looked down at her, the mask completely gone. He looked young and hopeful and terrified. Good. The song ended, but before they could leave the floor, a commotion started near the entrance. Flashes went off rapidly. People were shouting. Du Hyun's body went rigid against hers. The relaxation vanished instantly. He was the wolf again. Stay behind me, he ordered. A group of police officers was marching through the crowd. Not regular beat cops. Investigators in suits. They walked straight toward the dance floor. Beak Du Hyun, the lead detective shouted, holding up a warrant. You are under arrest for the murder of Lee Sang-hoon and the racketeering activities of the Beak clan. The music stopped. The room gasped. Du Hyun didn't panic. He squeezed Adana's hand one last time, hard, then let go. Call the lawyer, he whispered to her, his voice calm. Go to the safe house. Do not go home. Du Hyun, Adana grabbed his sleeve. No, don't say anything, he commanded, looking at her with intensity. I'll be out in 24 hours. Just stay safe. He held his hands out. The detective slapped the cuffs on him. Adana stood frozen in the middle of the ballroom, the red dress feeling like a target as they dragged the man she loved away in front of all of Seoul. Ruth was in the corner, smiling. This wasn't over. The game had just changed. The cameras were blinding. Flash, flash, flash. Adana stood frozen on the parquet floor, the red silk dress feeling less like armor and more like a target. She watched the police shove Beak Du Hyun's head down as they forced him into a waiting cruiser outside the glass doors. He didn't look back. He didn't fight. He knew that if he fought, they would hurt her. Well, a voice dripped with false sympathy. Ruth stepped into Adana's line of sight, sipping her wine. That didn't take long. I told you, honey. It's a criminal, and you're just the accessory. Adana's hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream. She wanted to claw the smirk off Ruth's face. But then she felt a heavy hand on her shoulder. Miss Adana. It was Chief Min, Du Hyun's head of security. He looked grim. We need to move now. The police have a warrant for the office, too. If they seize the servers, the boss is finished. Adana looked at Min, then back at Ruth. Ruth was smiling, expecting Adana to crumble, to cry, to run away. Adana straightened her spine. The fear was there, cold and sharp in her stomach, but the anger was hotter. Du Hyun had protected her. He had walked into handcuffs to keep the scene away from her. Now it was her turn. Let's go, Adana said to Min, ignoring Ruth completely. To the safe house? Min asked as they hustled toward the side exit. No, Adana said, her voice hard. To the office. I need to get the black drive. Min's eyes widened. The black drive. Miss, that is the only thing that will get him out, Adana snapped. Drive fast. The drive to Beak Enterprises was a blur of neon lights and rain. Adana sat in the back of the armored SUV, ripping the diamond necklace from her neck. It felt like a choke chain. She kicked off her heels and pulled a pair of spare sneakers from her gym bag in the trunk. They will be watching the building, Min warned as they approached the skyscraper. Police cars are already at the front. Go to the loading dock, Adana ordered. Use the freight elevator. My access card still works for the maintenance levels. Min looked at her in the rearview mirror, impressed. Yes, ma'am. They slipped into the building like ghosts. The freight elevator groaned as it ascended to the 50th floor. Adana's heart hammered against her ribs. If the police were already upstairs, if they caught her with the drive, she would go to prison. Du Hyun would go to prison. It would be over. The doors opened. The hallway was dark. The emergency lights bathed the carpet in an eerie red glow. Stay here, Adana whispered to Min. If you see cops, make noise. She ran to her desk. It was a mess, papers everywhere. The police had already been here. No, it looked like a struggle. She ran to Du Hyun's office. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open and stopped. Someone was already there. A man in a dark windbreaker was crouching behind Du Hyun's desk, hacking at the wall safe with a crowbar. He wasn't police. Police didn't use crowbars. Adana scanned the room. She saw a heavy crystal decanter on the sideboard. She moved silently. She had taken off her shoes to run faster. The man was focused on the safe, grunting with effort. 1 step, 2 steps. The man paused. He sensed her. He started to turn. Adana swung the crystal decanter with both hands, putting every ounce of her fear and rage into the blow. Crack. The heavy glass connected with the side of his head. The man crumpled to the floor without a sound. Adana dropped the decanter, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking violently. She stared at the unconscious man. It was one of the men she'd seen with Ruth's father at the gala, a corporate spy. You picked the wrong office, she whispered. She stepped over him and went to the bookshelf. She pulled the third book from the left, The Art of War. A keypad revealed itself behind the books. She typed in the code, not a random number. It was her birthday. 0-8-1-2. She choked back a sob. He had made the code her birthday. The panel slid open. Inside wasn't money or gold. It was a single, small black hard drive. The insurance policy. The dirt Du Hyun had on every corrupt judge, politician, and rival CEO in Seoul. She grabbed it, shoved it into her bra, and ran. The interrogation room at the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency was gray, cold, and smelled of stale coffee. Beak Du Hyun sat handcuffed to the metal table. He looked bored. He hadn't said a word in 2 hours. Detective Park slammed a file on the table. We have the warehouse footage, Beak. We have witnesses. You killed 3 men. Self-defense, Du Hyun said calmly. They kidnapped my employee. I rescued her. Korea has very strict laws about kidnapping, detective. You used an illegal firearm. I used a registered weapon belonging to my security detail. Check the serial number. Detective Park's face turned red. We're going to bury you. Tax evasion, the racketeering, and now murder. You're never seeing sunlight again. Du Hyun leaned forward, the chains rattling. Who paid you, Park? Was it Ruth's father or was it the mayor? Shut up. Make sure the price was high, Du Hyun whispered, his eyes black pits. Because when I get out of here, I'm going to buy your precinct and turn it into a parking lot. The door opened. A young officer stuck his head in. He looked terrified. Detective, you need to come out here. I'm busy, sir. It's the lawyer and a woman. Du Hyun's head snapped up. Adana. Tell them to wait, Park growled. I don't think they can wait, sir. She says she has the black drive. The color drained from Detective Park's face. He knew the rumors. Everyone in Seoul knew the rumors of the black drive. Du Hyun smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous thing. Let her in. A moment later, Adana walked in. She was still wearing the red dress, but she was barefoot, holding her heels in one hand. Her hair was messy. There was a smear of dust on her cheek. She looked magnificent. She walked right past the stunned detective and slammed a small black drive onto the metal table. Detective Park, Adana said, her voice steady, though Du Hyun could see the tremor in her fingers. On this drive, there is a video file dated March 14th. It shows you accepting a bribe from the Golden Dragon Syndicate. There are also bank records linking the chief of police to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The room went dead silent. You can't prove that, Park stammered. I can, Adana said, because I just emailed a copy to 3 major news stations. Encrypted, of course. If Mr. Beak isn't released in 10 minutes, I send the password. It was a bluff. Du Hyun knew it was a bluff. If she sent that to the news, they would both be assassinated by morning. But Park was a coward. He didn't know the game. Park looked at the drive. He looked at Adana. He looked at Du Hyun, who was grinning like a wolf. Uncuff him, Park whispered. Sir. I said uncuff him and get them out of here. The officer scrambled to unlock the cuffs. Du-hyun rubbed his wrists, standing up slowly. He towered over the detective. Good choice, Du-hyun said. He reached out and grabbed the drive. Then he turned to Adana. He didn't care about the cops. He didn't care about the cameras. He grabbed her face with both hands and kissed her. It was violent and desperate and full of relief. You are insane, he murmured against her lips. You went to the office alone. I hit a man with a decanter, Adana admitted breathlessly. Du-hyun threw his head back and laughed, a real, loud laugh that echoed in the police station. God, I love you, let's go home. They walked out of the police station hand in hand. The paparazzi were still there, waiting for the perp walk. Instead, they got the shot of the century, the mafia boss and his Cinderella, walking free, looking untouchable. They got into the waiting car. As soon as the door closed, Du-hyun pulled Adana into his lap. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling the scent of her fear and her victory. Marry me, he said. Adana froze. What? Marry me, he repeated, looking up at her. Right now, tonight, tomorrow, I don't care. I can't do this anymore. I can't risk you walking away. I need to know you are legally, spiritually, and physically mine. Du-hyun, you just got out of jail 5 minutes ago. You're running on adrenaline. I'm running on clarity, he argued. I saw my life end in that cell, and the only thing I regretted was that I hadn't put a ring on your finger. He reached into his pocket. It was empty. The police had taken his personal effects. He cursed. Then he looked at her hand. He reached down and pulled the tab off a soda can in the cup holder. Du-hyun, no, Adana started laughing. That is so cheesy. He took her left hand. His face was deadly serious. Adana Jones. You saved my life. You saved my company. You knocked a man out with Crystal. Will you marry me and run this empire with me? Adana looked at the aluminum ring. She looked at the man who would burn the world for her. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you crazy bastard, I will. He slid the metal tab onto her finger. It scratched, it was cheap, and it was perfect. Good, Du-hyun said, kissing her hand. Now, let's go home. I have a lot of stress to work off. Epilogue, 6 months later, the garden was coming along nicely. Adana stood on the patio of the massive house in the hills of Seongbukdong. It wasn't the penthouse. It was a fortress, yes, with high walls and cameras, but inside it was a home. There was grass, there were trees, and in the corner a swing set was being installed. Stop hovering, Du-hyun's voice came from behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. The contractors know what they're doing. They're installing it crooked, Adana pointed out. I'll have them shot, Du-hyun mumbled into her neck. Du-hyun, kidding, I'll just sue them. He kissed her cheek. How are you feeling? Adana placed her hand on her stomach. It was still flat, but she knew. They had found out yesterday. I'm feeling like everything changed, she said softly. For the better, Du-hyun said. He moved his hand to cover hers over her belly. I'm going to be a terrifying father, aren't I? Absolutely, Adana laughed. You're going to background check their kindergarten friends. Standard procedure. He turned her around, his face softening as he looked at her. He touched the massive diamond ring that had replaced the soda tab, though she still kept the tab in her jewelry box. I never thought I would have this, he admitted. I thought I would die in a suit, alone in an office. You gave me a life, Adana. You gave me a home, she replied. I love you, he said. More than power, more than money. More than coffee, he paused. Let's not get carried away. Adana hit his arm and he laughed, pulling her in for a kiss. The sun was setting over Seoul. The city was still dangerous, the business was still brutal, and there were always new enemies waiting in the shadows. But as Adana stood in her garden, safe in the arms of the most dangerous man in Korea, she knew they would handle it. Together. The end. Final message. Sometimes the person who scares you the most is the only one who can make you feel safe. Adana didn't just survive the boss, she conquered him. If you loved this dark, gritty romance, smash that like button and subscribe to Timeless K-Love. What would you do if you found the black drive? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next story.